So one of the staples of photo editing is object removal. Sometimes there's just something in your photo, whether it's a person or a tree branch or something that you just want to get rid of so that you can have the composition that you had in your mind, that you envisioned. Now, fortunately, the tools that you can use to accomplish that have gotten a lot better. And in this video, I'm going to show you one of my favorite tools in Lightroom, and it's also available in Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom Classic, and it's called the Content Aware Remove Brush. It's really powerful, and there are some things that you should know about how to get the most out of it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, so let's start with just understanding what the tools are at your disposal. And again, this is Lightroom. I've gotten some messages of people who asking like, how did you get Lightroom to look like this? Lightroom always looked like this. I think people were confused because they are using Lightroom Classic. So if you are using Lightroom Classic, that's why it looks different, is because this is Lightroom. But fortunately, pretty much everything I show you will be the same. So in Lightroom, you can access all of your healing tools right over here with this icon that looks like a little Band-Aid. So I'm going to click on it, and it's a pretty straightforward panel, and I'll go over this pretty quickly for you. There are three primary brushes or tools that you can use to remove distractions or objects. The first is the one that we're going to focus on, and if you hover over it, you'll see just kind of an example and a description of what it is. This is the Content Aware Remove Brush. This is actually pretty awesome, but I will admit that it can be hit or miss. So we're going to cover that here. Next to that is the good old healing brush. This is probably what you've used a lot in the past because that's what was available. And then next to it is the clone stamp tool, which is a brush you can use to do a pixel for pixel copy of a different area. So that's helpful for like repeating patterns and stuff. Next to it is kind of a red eye removal tool, which I don't use because I don't often photograph portraits, but it's there if you want to use it. Still, what I want to do is focus on this remove brush. Now, for landscape photographers, I think one of the first things we generally want to do is get rid of dust spots. And if there's a very clear dust spot, then it's typically easy to see. You'll see kind of a, that dust spot or a fiber or something in the image. But what if there are these kind of subtle dust spots? Maybe you had your lens set to a wide aperture, which is typically what will happen when you photograph, say at f2 or f2.8. If you have a dust spot on your sensor, it'll be softened. You won't see it as much as opposed to if you were photographing at f16 or a smaller aperture, then you'll see more predominant or hard edge dust spots. So here, there's a really great checkbox, and it's called Visualize Spots. So I'm going to check on it to enable it, and you'll see if there are any dust spots, they'll appear in this view. It's kind of like a mask view, and you'll have this slider, a threshold slider, and this controls, I guess, just how strong the mask is. So if I bring that threshold to 0, you see how it's becoming a lot less sensitive, and dust spots that may be here become invisible. So for me, I'm generally at 100%. Depending on the type of image you have, like if you were to use a very high ISO, you might actually start to see noise. If there is noise in the photo, you'll see that in this view, but you'll also be able to see the dust spots, and it's pretty easy to differentiate between the two. So if I go ahead and zoom in, you can see, actually you can kind of see a little bit of noise when I zoom in, but you can see these dust spots. And so what you can do is use the size slider here to adjust the brush size, which is pretty common. And I generally adjust the size so that it's a little bit larger than the actual spot that I want to remove. So I'm going to go ahead here and click on this, and then I'll click here and click here. And we've now gotten rid of the dust spots. So if I disable visualize spots, not that we could even see the spots before, but in this visualize spots view, it showed that there were dust spots. So that's really important. And it's a great way to use the Content Aware Remove brush to get rid of that. Now, if I hover over the image, you don't see those strokes that I made. And that's because by default, the overlays for each of those selections are hidden. So if you want to see all of the strokes that you made to remove a specific area of your photo, just enable this option here that says Show Overlay on Hover. So I'm going to click on it and notice that nothing appears. That's because the cursor is not hovering over the image. So now when I hover over it, you can see there are our three dust spots that I removed. And you can go ahead, if I want, I can click it and move it around. But I don't know why I would do that, but that's something you can do. Now, if I right click on any of these selections here, you can see we have some options. The first is you can change the type of brush that you use. So if the content aware remove doesn't give you a good result, you can change it on the fly by selecting heal or clone. You can also make sure that this is selected over here, and you can tell it's selected because it has a bit of a brighter white border as opposed to these other two. See, if I click through them, the border changes a little bit. And you can either change by selecting over here, right clicking and selecting from the menu, or you can just click on the different brushes and it'll change. And if you want to get rid of a particular selection, you can either right click and go to delete, or you can press the delete key on your keyboard or the backspace key if you're on Windows. If you go to reset healing, that will basically get rid of all of the selections. So watch, if I click over here, now all 3 of those selections are gone. But really quickly, again, we can visualize spots and just make those selections super quickly. And so that is using the content aware remove to get rid of dust spots. So I'll disable the visualize spots view over here, and I'm also going to disable show overlay and hover. And then let's go to the full image. Now let's take a quick look at the other 2 brushes. Again, I'm not going to talk about the red eye reduction because I don't really use it, but you'll see again for the remove brush, you have basically size and opacity. I'll show you that in a minute. And then we also have this refresh button, which I'll also show you. If you go to the healing brush, this is the kind of legacy healing brush. You'll see that you also have a brush size control, but you also have a feather, which allows you to create a transition from the hard edge to the soft edge of the brush. And then you also have an opacity control. And then same thing with the clone stamp tool. You have size, feather, and opacity. Now, let's go ahead to the remove brush again. And let's say I want to get rid of this entire tree here. Well, what I'll do is I'll take the size slider and I'll make a nice big brush for the selection here. And you can also use your left and right bracket keys, just like any other brush control. And I generally like to make a big blob around the selection that I want to remove. So I'm going to go like this and just kind of make this big blob. And it's important to make sure that you cover everything you want to remove. Don't leave little spots. And so what I'm going to do now is let go, and then Lightroom will begin analyzing, and it removes the tree. And it actually does a really nice job. We can go ahead here. Let's zoom in a little bit, and I'll position it to around where we removed the tree, which was right around here. There is a little eye icon that if you click and hold, you'll see basically what was originally there and then what the remove brush did. Let's just zoom up a little bit over here so you can see the whole thing. And so it does a pretty good job. Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, I can totally see the effect, here's kind of a pro tip. Anytime you do one of these big removals, I recommend just looking away, just look somewhere else, not at your display. Look for like 10 seconds. Even walk away and get a drink of water or something. But don't allow yourself to look at the image right away. Then come back and take a look. And if you look at it, especially when you are zoomed to fit here, it's probably unlikely that you'll see that effect. It's just when you compare the original to the after where you can be like, oh, I see that. And in some cases, that's important. Like, again, let's go ahead and zoom in. Maybe you're not happy with this particular area, the way this wooden banister was replaced. Well, if you're unhappy with this selection, this is specifically with the content aware remove brush, you see this refresh button. Basically, this is like rolling the dice again. You're like, okay, I'm rolling the dice, seeing what Lightroom gives me, and that's okay. Let me try to get a Yahtzee. And so I'm going to roll again. So that's what this refresh button does. And so what you'll want to make sure is that your selection is enabled. So go to show overlay on hover. Here you can see that the selection has a blue dot. This means that this selection is not yet selected. So that's why the refresh button is grayed out. So you'll know that it's selected because if you click on it, the icon changes. So it now has kind of a thicker blue border. And if I go to refresh, you'll see it's enabled. So if I click on it, basically Lightroom will reanalyze and give you a different result. And you can keep trying this. Like if this isn't good, you can click it again. And the cool thing is, it's like, oh, if let's say the previous selection was actually better, you liked it, you can use the undo keyboard shortcut of Command or Control Z, and it'll bring you back to the previous selection. So that's kind of cool. Now, you can see right over here, there is this kind of area that I don't like. Like it's just a little bit distracting. So I want to use another selection. I want to make another stroke with the remove brush, but you'll notice that I can't. And that's because we currently have this selection enabled with this view enabled. So show overlay and hover, I cannot make a selection inside the existing selection. So the only way that you can do that is to turn this option off. And now you can see that I can make a selection. Before, when this is on, the brush is hidden and you have the little hand icon. So turning that off allows you to make a selection. I'm going to press the left bracket key, get a smaller brush over here, and I'm just going to make a selection right there. And boom, we're good to go. I could also try and see what happens if I make a selection over here. And you can see there, it got rid of the fence. And so this is a perfect opportunity here to just go back. I'm going to enable show overlay and hover. There is the selection. I'm just going to right click and go to delete. Now to illustrate how you can change the brush that you use after the fact, let's hide this over here. And let's just say I make a selection to remove this area here. Okay, so it's removed, but let's say you're not happy with the selection and you want to see how the other brushes will fare. Well, all you need to do is click on the different brushes and you see how it changes. Now with the healing brush, you'll see that it kind of looks like it's almost like it's semi-transparent. And part of that has to do with the feather. So if you make a selection and it doesn't look right, one of my recommendations is to take the feather slider and start dragging it to the left. And you can kind of see if I kind of go back and forth, how that feather is basically expanding or contracting. So you can adjust this to see if maybe you get a better result. And then of course you can use the clone stamp tool, which is a pixel for pixel copy. If I click on show overlay on hover and I select it, you can see this is the selection we made, and these are the pixels that are being copied. So I can go ahead and move this, and you see how the exact pixels within that selection are being copied. So we can go ahead and kind of try to position this like that, and then hide the overlay, and maybe that works for you. But again, we can go ahead to that selection and then change it back to the remove brush, and there is what Lightroom analyzed. And again, it's not so good, which is why I recommend, if you're not happy with the results, first just click on refresh to see if you get something better, or try changing to one of the other brushes. All right, so now you should have a better idea of how that panel works and the tools and the sliders and the checkboxes within it. What I want to do now is kind of show you a few little tricks of how you can get even more productive with these tools. All right, so it's a pretty boring photo, but it allows me to illustrate this first tip really easily. This is especially helpful if you want to remove an object that is somewhat linear. It could be vertical, it could be horizontal, but as long as it's pretty much straight, this is a great little trick. So what I'm going to do is go back to the healing panel over here, and I've got the remove brush here. And what I want to do is I'm going to make a nice big brush. Again, I want it to be kind of larger than the entire area that I want to remove. So nice big fat brush like that. And what I could do is just click and then drag up. The thing is, if I'm overly caffeinated, I might kind of squiggle around and it's not exactly straight. And I feel like you might not get as good of a result when you do it. You might get a great result, but in some cases, if you need precision, drawing a straight line might not be in the cards for you. So what I'm going to do is right click over here and delete this. And let me show you how you can create a really nice and easy straight line. The first thing you'll do is just click at the bottom of what the line will be. So let's say the line is like this, basically this kind of vertical, a little bit diagonal line. I want the line to start down here. And so I just click. That's all I did. And then I go to where I want the line to end, which is right here. And then I'm going to press and hold on the shift key. So I didn't do anything yet. I just moved to where the line should end. I'm going to press and hold on the shift key and then click. And then what happens is Lightroom will create a connection. It'll create a selection that's basically a straight line. And you can see that right here. And so this is a really great way to make a perfectly straight, in this case, it's a little bit diagonal, but it is straight selection. So it got rid of that tree trunk without any issue. Now, again, you can see there's a little bit of an area here that wasn't properly healed, and I cannot do anything because I have the show overlay on hover, so I can't make a stroke within this yet. So what I'll do is I'm going to disable that. Let's bring that brush size down a little bit, and let's just make a selection over here. And there we go. Now, if I hit the backslash key, you can see there is the original photo, and then we have the tree removed. And again, look away for like 10 seconds and then look back. And if you see any distinct patterns or just something doesn't look right, address it. But don't just say like, oh, that's not good. Look away and then look back. All right, so now let's move on to this image here. And I'm gonna show you, this is another little trick that often gets overlooked with the content aware remove brush. And that's because it doesn't exactly have a setting or a checkbox to it. I'm gonna go to the healing panel again. And just like before, let's go ahead and make a nice big brush. And I want to get rid of this tree in the foreground. So I'm just going to make a big blob around the entire area here. And you want to make sure that you fill in the blob. So you first, usually what I'll do is I'll make an outline and then I'll fill in everything. But here we're pretty good. So I'm going to let go and I'm going to let Lightroom analyze it. And it did a pretty good job, right? Like it got rid of the tree and it filled it in as best it could. But what if you want to tell Lightroom, hey, when you do your sampling, I want you to specifically look at an area in the photo that I prefer. And you can see that it's right under the refresh button on the right. It says command drag on the photo to select a custom source. It's easily overlooked. And if you're on Windows, that would be control drag. So I'm going to press and hold on the command key. And you see, watch if I let go, how it turns into a crosshair. And I'm just going to make a selection right over here. And then basically, Lightroom will take that into effect and it will basically reanalyze and fill in that area with that information. And you can see how it blends in a lot better. Now, of course, if you're not happy with this, you can click on refresh. It will still maintain that information, but it's just going to try again. And again, if you're just not happy and you want to sample a different area, press and hold on the command or control key, make a different selection, and see what Lightroom does. And that's actually pretty cool. Again, if we hit the backslash key, you can see there is the original image. And then this is the image that we use the content aware remove brush to get rid of that tree. If you want to say fill this in, all you need to do is just make another selection and Lightroom will analyze the surrounding pixels, the rest of the image, and it fills it in really nicely. All right, so before we move on to the third and final tip, I just want to take a quick minute to tell you about my new course called Lightroom Everywhere. So if this kind of stuff excites you, where you just want to make the most out of your Adobe subscription and learn everything you could possibly need to know about Lightroom's cloud-based ecosystem, how to work with it on the desktop, on your iPhone, on your iPad, and any other mobile device, check out this course. The link is in the description below. It's got over 9 hours of easy-paced lessons that go over absolutely everything. By the time you're done, you will know everything there is to know about Lightroom. It even includes all of the new features and updates from this year's Adobe Max conference. So again, the link is in the description below. Your purchase directly helps support my small business. It helps me continue to make these videos, and I am so grateful for that. So again, if you want to learn how to use Lightroom Everywhere, please check out my course. All right, let's move on. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the remove brush is when it makes sense to use it in Lightroom and when it might make sense to use the same tool in Photoshop. So for this image, I'm just going to do a quick edit by clicking on auto, and then I'm going to press on C to go to crop, and I'm just going to straighten the horizon a little bit. Nothing special, nothing to it. But what I want to do is I want to remove this pedestrian over here. So I'll go to the healing panel here, and just like before, let's get a brush that's a little bit larger than what you want to remove. And I'm just going to make my selection over here. I mean, Lightroom did a good job, and this is kind of the point. Like this remove tool, I mentioned this at the beginning, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's amazing, but sometimes it just can't get its act together. And you can see here, if I click on refresh, I mean, you might get a better result a little bit. You'll kind of have to keep clicking to see. But again, it's not perfect. Like we could go ahead and make a smaller brush here and try to remove this area. But, you know, it's going to be a lot of trial and error here. So click over there, click over here. We still have kind of a messed up area here that you can try to fix. Point is that it's not especially good. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on this icon here, which will remove all of the previous selections that you've made. So there is our pedestrian again. And I'm going to try to use the remove brush in Photoshop. So to do that, I'll right click on this image and I'm going to go to edit in Photoshop. All right, so in Photoshop, you'll see here, there is our little remove tool icon. If you don't see it, you might be, for instance, on the spot healing tool. Just press and hold on this and then go to the remove tool. And we'll do the exact same thing where I'm just going to use a larger brush and I'm going to make my selection on the person here. So just like this, and making sure that everything is covered, and then I'm going to let go. And you can see that at least in Photoshop, it did a fantastic job right there on the first shot. There are ways that we can finesse it a little bit. Like if you really want to get this line straight, you can do that. We can also blend this area in, but for the most part, it did a really good job. Now, of course, we can undo this and we can try again, because that's what the beauty of this brush is that you can try it again. And in some cases, you might get an even better result. And so again, if I go ahead and I look away for a few seconds while I chat with you, and then I look back over here, and I mean, I would never have known that there was a person there. We get hung up on little details, and they are important. Like, don't get me wrong, if there's something that just sticks out, you can keep making additional strokes. Like if you want to blend this area here, you can do that. Same thing here. We can just click over here to kind of straighten this out, or we can go ahead and drag to the right. And same thing here. We can just click to kind of straighten and smooth out any hard edges. But if I go back to Lightroom, let's do this again. Just the same thing. I will make my selection of this person here, and let's let go and see how Lightroom compares. And so you can see it's not especially good. It's not as good as Photoshop, that's for sure. If you click on refresh here, it actually got worse. So my point here is, in some cases, it's better to just send the image to Photoshop. For some reason, the remove tool in Photoshop is really good. Like if Lightroom is great, then the Photoshop tool is amazing. And again, it's not like you have to send every photo to Photoshop, but if there is something especially complex that you want to remove and Lightroom is just having a hard time, it takes no effort at all to send it to Photoshop, use the tool, and import it back into Lightroom. So I hope you have a little bit more comfort now in how to use the remove brush in Lightroom and in Photoshop. It's a really powerful asset. It should be part of any photographer's editing workflow. Again, if you want to get even more out of Lightroom, check out Lightroom Everywhere. The link is in the description below. And if you want to check out one of my new favorite tools that was just added to Lightroom as part of Adobe Max, check out this video on the new lens blur tool. It's amazing. All right, everyone. See you next time.